Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Distinguished Speaker Series. I am so thrilled to be talking to you again. For those of you that are joining us new, my name is Asma Wasti. I'm the founder and creator of Accelerate Global. It's a personal growth and education company that actually helps online digital growth for people. We run three types of accelerators: a career accelerator, a visibility accelerator, and a dream webinar accelerator. When you get a chance, go check us out at accelerateglobal.com. But one of our favorite things to do is to bring experts to you to talk to you about their area of expertise. All of them are entrepreneurs running their own successful businesses in their own area of expertise that is so valuable. I would love to pick the brains of them and find tips, tricks, and hacks and understanding of them, of what made them an entrepreneur. How do they do what they do it? And today it is really my honor and my pleasure to bring to you a fellow Canadian all the way from Montreal, Michel Desjardins. Michel, thank you so much for coming and joining us on our Distinguished Speaker Series today.
Thank you, Asma. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Really, I can't wait to talk to you because, let's start with introducing you. So you are from Montreal.
Yep.
You grew up and raised there. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yes, born and raised in Montreal. I was in Montreal for most of my life.
Yeah.
So I was raised in Untitled, like the northern part of Montreal, by a single mom. So happy International Women's Day. I was raised by a
Thank you.
single mom. She did a great job supporting me and my brother without a father presence whatsoever. He was pretty bad.
Congratulations on that, and happy International Women's Day to you as
And,
well.
and she encouraged me to go to college. She encouraged me to go to university. I only left home when I was like, when I got my first job at KPMG. So I'm a charter accountant, a CPA.
Uh-huh.
So I started my career at KPMG doing external audit and then risk management. And then I saw a change at some point and jumped ship to go to Deloitte, the old Sanson Belair Deloitte in Touche in
Yeah,
Quebec.
Touche. Yeah, that's right.
So I was a manager there for several years in risk management and internal audit and doing IT auditing. And then at some point, there was an opportunity. And it's interesting because it's an opportunity that I did with a woman, in the sense that my boss at the time was a woman, a great partner. She's now like the CEO of the Ocean Supercluster. And we went together with a team of 7 people to Russia, to Moscow for 2 years, to help them with some quality problems that they were having there. So, and then after that mission, I ended up moving to Russia for 2 years. And I lived there for 2 years and know more about like how they do things. And then at some point, it was a global financial crisis. I moved to Australia. I worked for Deloitte there for a total of 3 years. And I worked 5 years also for a large telecom company there, where I was in the chief internal audit team and the chief risk office, the CRO.
Wow.
So I was still doing internal audit and risk management. And then at some point, I was repatriated in Canada here for Deloitte as a director. So for the last 6 years, before I start my own business, I was 6 years at Deloitte as a director, doing risk management, internal audit, cybersecurity. And throughout all of that, I discovered leadership really around like more leadership, like proper leadership around like 2012. I built my own model and use it internally at Telstra and at Deloitte and things like that. And then a year ago, I was made redundant at Deloitte. And I started my own business doing consultation, but also training people and coaching people on leadership and business risk management and control, because I did that for 21 years. So I'm a big expert for like risk management and control. But then all the leadership that I learned, what to do or what not to do
Not to do.
all those years, that's really, really useful. And that's where like it's really important to learn that and to do leadership.
True. And I'm going to get a lot of, like, we're going to talk a little bit about that, because you're going to give us a bit of insight based on your experience and now that the program that you've developed in regards to leadership. But what a remarkable ride you've had. You picked up a few languages. You're already bilingual, right? in this process. Did you ever think that you would ever be working in this role as an entrepreneur and teaching people about leadership?
I did not end up planning that beforehand. Like it ended up like once I left Deloitte, I was like, okay, what will I do with now with my life that I have the opportunity to? I'm at the crossroad. What do I want to do? What do I enjoy? And then I after an introspection, I kind of understood that the part that I like the most at Deloitte and Telstra and KPMG was when I was supervising people, when I was teaching people, when I was guiding people, when people were coming to me for advice and things like that. So I was growing out of that, and I was helping them to grow and develop their management, develop their leadership skills and things like that. So
Sure. And in this process, really, I mean, that gives you an insight, and that, of course, and that takes you. So I obviously the best thing to do is to create a business around what you enjoy the most in that process, teaching them because it comes naturally to you. But I have a question for you. Leadership.
yes.
People say, does this you're born with the leadership skills or you acquire them? What do you think? What is your
Uh,
insight in it?
I think very few are born with it. And
Mhm.
the one that are born with it, it's more like it's not even like necessary for leadership. They may be good at influencing people, and maybe they already have a deep voice and a gravitas about them. So it helps, but they may not have the actual skill about how to do leadership consciously properly. They may be good leader subconsciously, but
Mm.
learning to be a good conscious leader and do the right thing the right way at the right time, etc., etc. It's like there's more of an art to it, and it's totally like learnable. People can be taught that. After
Mhm.
that, will they do it or not? It's like it's becoming it's creating habit. So it's another thing. It's one thing to learn it. It's one thing to act it properly.
Mhm.
But I think yes, 95% of the people should be able to learn it. After
Yeah.
that, how many will actually put it in action?
Right. So that's my question. That's perfect timing for you to say that because so what's the difference between being a leader versus a manager or leadership versus managerial skills? I know it's a vast subject, but let's
It's a
pick a
vast
few
subject.
points. Yeah.
Totally. Like there was some, and I remember because I started doing research on the topic, like when I dive more into it, and I went more into it after having a series of bad leaders. So
Mm.
at some point in my career in Russia, I had toxic leader in Russia,
Mhm.
and not pointing at Russian, but they were expatriates. The expat that were my leader were really bad. And then at some point, I went to another company and I had a bad leader there again. And I was like, oh no, I'm enough of having bad leaders in a row.
Mhm.
Let's discover how to influence them. Let's discover what is good leadership, what is bad leadership, how to prevent that and correct that and things like that. So I did more research, and then I discovered like the work of Dr. John Cotter.
Mhm.
So around 1990, that period, he described as a researcher at Harvard University the difference between management and leadership. So management, like it's more like action oriented, like task, like planning, budgeting, organizing, staffing meeting or people, measuring things, problem solving, creating results. So it's more task oriented, and the leadership was more fluff in nature,
Mhm.
creating a vision, which is it's still like there's an action in it, and it's creating a vision where the company is going in 5 years, 10 years, predicting the future, creating that future, establishing the direction, aligning people, motivating, inspiring, propelling the team into the future. So it's a bit different, and it's
Mhm.
interesting because Dr. Cotter put it as management versus leadership, but in
Mhm.
reality, it's not necessarily a one versus the other. It's binary thinking, and God knows
Mhm.
these days binary thinking is not really useful. Not everything is
Mhm.
black and white. There's
Yeah,
an
it
infinity of
comes
gray.
together. Yeah,
So
cohesiveness of both.
exactly, there's a lot of that overlaps, and you can be a
Mm.
leader and a manager at the
Manager.
same time. And then after that, will you do it properly or not? Because you could still inspire people the wrong way. You could
Mhm.
still inspire people the right way, or you could be like completely neutral and you don't inspire people whatsoever. You
or
don't have
just manage tasks in the middle and stay there. So what, let's talk about that. Then what are the characteristics of a good leader? Because you said you learned from, oh, I found a bad leader there and I found a bad leader there. So what are they? Like, how do we identify that?
I divided. There's two kind of aspect that I look at. Well, the first aspect is it reactive, proactive, or passive? So it's really like the proactive. They take the lead and they start thinking, what is possible? What could we do before even somebody asks me? So if you're a good leader and you start doing the right thing the right way before your boss asks you or your staff asks you or things like that, then it's good. You're proactive. The reactive is like, oh, once somebody asks you, you do it. Once your boss asks you to do something, you do it. You may still end up doing it, but you only do it once somebody asks you, once something happened. Oh, now we have a problem. We'll deal with the problem. We never prevented the problem in the first place. And then there's passive people that they're flatlining. They're like, when something happened or not, like they're just cruising around. They're not even reacting to things. So passive in that sense could be quite bad, because if there's a situation of somebody discriminated at work and you don't do anything about it, that ends up being a bad thing. Your inaction is a bad thing. You need to stand up and proactively do something against that and correct the course to avoid that from happening again. And then one other aspect is like being a positive leader versus a neutral leader versus a negative leader. Well, also, like we go like philosophy or theory there, but a positive leader will have a tendency to focus on a life strategy, like a meta program, to drive people to be happy. Like overall, their life strategy is trying to get people to be happy. They will empower the team, engage the team, push for diversity of cultural diversity, gender diversity, fairness, but also diversity of thoughts. It's really important. Diversity of thought. Yeah, even if you have a team of like 5 women, you don't want the 5 women to think the same way. You may take one that go a bit against the grain, and she thinks a different way, and she brings a value to the conversation. Yeah, it may create clash at time, but there's value out of it at the end. If they all think the same way and all go in the same direction, are they creating value to each other? Because they're not complementary. They're all the same. So you don't want the team to be a bunch of sardines. So you want that things differently. So a positive leader will go get those person and assemble a team that's diverse. Versus the neutral leader, as it says, another one, it's cruising. And let's be clear, the amount of people that are like neutral, not helping people, not progressing, helping you progress your career or the company's like goals and things like that. It's the majority of leaders are actually neutral. In all my career, I had about 50 leaders, because like I started like really low as a staff. Then I became a senior, and then as a senior, I was supervising staff. I became a manager. I was supervising senior and staff. I became a senior manager. So then I became a director. It's a whole pyramid of people that. So, but at some point, I had like 5 managers above me. I had 5 senior managers. I had 5 partners, and so throughout the year, I had about 50 leaders supervising me indirectly or directly.
And you had all kinds and all styles, different types and different styles?
Yes. I got about 5 were like quite toxic in some ways. Probably about 5 were excellent leader, incredibly good. And about 40 were just passive and neutral and not helping me in my career, not even maybe even helping themselves in their own career. They're just cruising, and it's almost like a bureaucratic way. People, they go in their comfort zone and they stick way too much to their own comfort zone, and then they don't realize that they're stagnating and they're making everybody around them stagnating. So sadly enough, neutral and passive leaders, that's the majority of leaders. They're just not aware of it.
Are they consciously not thinking about their leadership style or developing it?
Exactly. They're not consciously thinking about it and taking action to do something about it for themselves in some cases and for their team. So it's one thing to say, oh yeah, go do your annual plan, and your boss will ask you to do your annual plan. It's like,
So
yeah,
how can we change that? So and I come from a corporate background as well before I went on and developed hundreds of businesses, like yours, using my system and process in developing that system. But I've had my fair share of leaders, and I can rank them in different categories.
yeah.
So how does one develop a particular style? So is that developed subconsciously, or the ones that are excellent leaders are actually developing it, learning it consistently versus those who aren't?
Like again, like a few
Mhm,
will be the subconscious one that are good. That will be the minority
mhm,
because they were good and maybe they were always good and maybe they were supervised by good people at some point and they learned the right way without even realizing it.
mhm,
That's almost luck at some point.
mhm,
And then the one that are more doing things consciously,
mhm,
they create their own luck. They create like they do self-development, self-progression. They learn stuff and they put it in action and they seek new knowledge and they apply it constantly. So because they do self-development continuously and they try to be better leaders constantly, they read books, they go to training, they get coached, etc., etc. Then they made them, they will end up being better than the others. You could be a
mhm,
good one already, and then if you do self-development on top of that and get coach
mhm,
and training and things like that, you could become like excellent, awesome at leadership.
mhm,
So there's a range of that. If somebody stay passive and doesn't become conscious and do conscious action and decisive action to do training and coaching and reading and things like that, yeah, they will plateau. They are in their comfort zone, doing their thing their own little way, maybe thinking that they're doing it the right way, and maybe they're not because they never did a kind of an assessment. So
mhm.
it's almost
I,
like people do it. They need to do a self check.
I was going to ask you, this was my next question. It's such a natural progression of our conversation because sometimes some companies, and especially because our viewers are small business owners, they may be solopreneurs all the way to having a team of about 50, 60 people around them. I can tell you about Accelerate Global. We have a team of about 30 people around us. So, there's now we have started to create those middle management roles also, because obviously I alone can't be managing
Yeah,
these group of people,
it's normal. Yes.
right? It's so with those kind of an audience, like how do they measure, or are they supposed to create an assessment for their team managers, or is that a self-assessing kind of a thing that you recommend?
There's a few angles. So
Mhm,
and part of what I do now,
mhm,
teaching like or training people on leadership, like I do like elements that are self leadership related and
mhm,
then people leadership related. So normally I tell people, look at your self leadership first before you start leading other people, to be sure that your
mhm,
house is in order before you start helping people out. So
mhm,
if somebody is a solo entrepreneur,
mhm,
solopreneur, whatever
mhm,
is the word, yeah, they could do self leadership and assess like what's their level of motivation and what's
mhm,
the level of competency, and then based on where they are, or I
mhm,
developed a framework for that. Based on where they are in that framework, that level of motivation or competency, then they could take action to progress them, increase the level of motivation in different ways, different angle, depending on what's the reason for low motivation. It could be like emotional intelligence training and self motivation, looking back at
mhm,
things that they did in the past that say, oh, I did those achievements in the past, and
mhm,
did a bit of a self pep talk. Or
mhm,
go consult somebody or one of your ex colleague or a friend. Like there's ways to do that.
mhm,
And if it's the skills, it's a bit straightforward because quite often it's training, reading, discussion with somebody else that teach you how to do it, or a coach or things like that. So they can do the self as a self check in a self leadership way. And then after that, if they're supervising people, they can still use my leadership model to figure out where is somebody's level of motivation and where is somebody's level of competency slash quality, to assess what that person needs from them. So it's a two-way model that they can help, if they can self-assess and help themselves, and then they can self-assess and help their own team.
Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. We would love to. And I know that you've got something, an announcement coming up past by the end of this live broadcast. We have some few minutes to go. So I'm excited and thrilled about that to find out more. So tell us about the toxic side of the leadership as well. And what
Yeah.
kind of an impact does it have?
So the negative one, again, you will have still that slight distinction, the one that are doing it subconsciously. So
Hmm.
they could be really bad leaders.
Hmm.
They're not necessarily toxic in the sense that it's not conscious. They're just bad at it. They're doing the wrong thing the wrong way.
Hmm.
And maybe they could be snappy, they could be emotionally imbalanced, things like that. But they're not doing it because they're mean. They're doing it because maybe that's how they learn it, and they're reacting what they learned from their previous boss in their career or even their parents.
Hmm.
The one that are doing it consciously, oh, that's the one we don't like. That's the true toxic one. They're mean people, they're evil people, they're doing it on purpose. So
Hmm.
and it could be like their life strategy, the meta program that they use to drive people, it's fear mostly. So it's
Hmm.
fear driven. It's people to force people to avoid suffering. So to avoid the fear of the boss, you will
Hmm.
do what the boss is asking you to do, because otherwise you fear that he will leash at you.
Hmm.
So, uh, they diminish people. They use emotion against people. They are quite often they have poor EQ. They have poor emotional intelligence, and they will leash out on people. It's part of
Hmm.
their fear. Like they're choleric. They scream at people. I lived that in Russia. I had a boss that was screaming at the staff and things like that. Like on a
Hmm.
open floor plan with 400 employees, was screaming at one of
Wow.
the Russian employee. Like it was horrible. And then he went to
Hmm.
the office, and we could hear screaming for 20 minutes.
Hmm.
And I don't even think that what the employee did in the first place was requiring any screaming. It was not that bad. It's just that the boss was emotionally
Nothing
unstable.
requires screaming. It's just how you manage it. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
for a
It,
work
it, it's not
environment.
it's not it's not what you're saying. It's how you're saying it, and
Yeah,
screaming. Whatever you're saying, if you're screaming,
yeah.
that's not gonna work well.
No, no, not at all. So, how do we, when we are building our businesses, how do we make sure that we avoid that kind? I mean, there are the basics of understanding, but when we're hiring people into leadership roles, right?
Mm.
What to look for?
It's tricky.
Hmm.
Uh, it's tricky because first, there's always the chance, depending who's hiring. If
Hmm.
it's a toxic person, it's more likely to hire toxic people.
Hmm.
So that's why sometimes you go, oh yeah, the CEO of that business, he hire like that person, like yeah, it's
So we
also
like to hire people like us, isn't it? Like we like to kind of mirror ourselves into.
we have everybody has a unconscious bias about it. Yes,
Mhm,
we have a tendency to like people that are like us. And I remember myself, I hire a lot of people throughout my career, probably more than 500.
mhm,
And sometimes I had to force myself to say, oh, that person is introvert. I'm more a part-time extrovert. I'm technically an ambivert. It's a mix between the two. But when I see somebody that's really deep introvert, it's like, okay, like I know that there's a lot of strong extrovert, but we need some introvert in the team to balance it out. You don't want everybody to be extrovert. You don't want everybody to be like you. So you have to
mhm,
force yourself sometimes to do a cross check.
mhm,
Say, I need people that are thinking differently. I need different culture, different gender. You need and it's not just like aiming at the balance for ticking boxes and numbers and looking good in a
mhm,
corporate way, but it's because it's good for the company. It's good for the team at the end to have diversity of thoughts.
mhm. So then so you suggest to build policies for hiring diversity,
Yeah.
and of course look for people that are diverse in opinion as well as their skill set, and encourage having diverse opinions at the
Yeah,
table.
because if you, it's almost like you could do some tests, almost like
Mhm,
in the interview, you could ask some questions that are like kind of hard question in a sense. Like if you ask something and you have a discussion and the person's like, oh yes, I agree, he's like, oh, would that person always agree with me? Because that's not helping me if he's always a yes man. Like I
mhm,
may need that person sometimes to disagree and even challenge my position. So it's almost, here's a situation and it's like a bad situation on purpose.
mhm,
And
mhm,
you're like, okay, what will you do? What if I do that? What will you do? It's like, oh, you're my boss, I'll follow your orders. Okay, so you'll blindly follow my orders. I don't like that. I know it's a bad order. So I'm giving you a bad order on purpose, and you're telling me
Purposely,
you follow
yes.
it. Like it's just like no, no, no. I want people to have judgment and not blindly do things. I had enough at the time that people were doing that.
Mhm.
So some of my employees were doing that in another country,
Yeah,
and
because some cultures propagate that. That's how they're raised also.
yes. Oh, when I worked in Russia, as soon as I arrived in Russia, I was told, do not smile to your staff because they will think you're an idiot.
Oh,
So
wow.
we saw some picture of the Russian president recently with some Aeroflot people, and he was not smiling.
Mm,
It's normal. It's part of the culture. He will not smile because he will appear as a weaker leader. That's their
mhm,
perception. My
mhm,
style is normally I smile a lot and I encourage people and things like that. That
mhm,
style did not work with the Russian office. At some point, we had to softly threaten people to do
mhm.
so they would do their job. We had to like threaten somebody at some point to be fired for that person to do the actual work.
Wow.
That was like
Okay.
that was like madness, but that was at that point in time that was the way to do things over there because of cultural differences. The same
What,
thing in Canada would not work.
we don't do that kind of there's no stick behind any in any offices for you to be able to do that. We smile a lot, we laugh a lot. It's it depends on where you are, the kind of industry sector you're in also. So that's a good point you made, Michel, in terms of the right fit for the leadership. So I'm going to bring you to your program then for
Yeah.
that, because you said that you can change the people can change the meta programming for themselves as well as for others, right?
Yes. So part of the tricks that I learned and I developed throughout the years, like one I learned it from like
Hmm.
Tony Robbins, like books and knowledge.
Hmm.
Around 2012, I created a meta program model. So mental patterns, 8 mental patterns, and how to identify your patterns, but how to identify patterns of other people, and then how can you adjust your communication to influence them.
Hmm.
So I developed a small course on that, and I put it on udemy.com. So I put it there, and I'll give like a free access to the people, like part of your group, to your
Hmm.
members. I'll give like a free access. I'll create a coupon and create a free access to that course. It's probably about an hour and 20-minute long,
Yeah,
self-paced, about 10 modules. I also
that's
have another
amazing.
course on Udemy that is about self-leadership.
Hmm.
So simple one. Also, it's a self-paced one without exercise, probably about 2 hours. And then
Hmm.
I'm creating currently a leadership development program. So it will be for either employee or managers that want to avoid making catastrophic leadership mistakes. So it's more a long-term program that will include meta program, it will include self-leadership and people leadership, but I will also teach like some basic management skill like time management and prioritization. And so somebody has a level of motivation that's low or a level of
Hmm.
skills that's low, I'll teach some of the skills that I know, or I will
Hmm.
invite some key expert to bring the skills that they know that I'm not an expert in.
I'm looking forward to that. That sounds wonderful. That sounds like something that our audience is going to take up because, given the size and the format of that program, I think it fits well for them. But I'd really appreciate that you're giving us like about $200 worth of value of the program access to your meta programming. We'll post the code here in our private Facebook group so that people have access. Anybody who's joining us in the recording and the replay, watching it on our YouTube channel, please go and join. We'll provide the links. Join our Facebook group and get the code for Michel's program and offer. That's an hour and 20 minutes long, 10 modules. You don't get that kind of an offer every day. So it's really remarkable. I appreciate that. I'm still going to ask you a question. So, growing up, you said you didn't think that you were going to be an entrepreneur. What defines, like, if we see children today, like, sometimes we see in characteristics and we say, oh, that person looks like, this kid looks like they're a leader, or this person's going to look like grow up to be a politician. What characteristics did you find in yourself that are coming in handy now that you saw in yourself growing up that you developed or you learned over time?
Yeah, so about me, when I was young, without knowing it, because I was not even good at school. Like when I was at high school, I was terrible. but I was already counting and sorting my Smarties by
Uh-huh.
color. So without knowing it, and I was asking really hard question at high school. Like my some of my teacher did not like me because I was asking the difficult question. So I was already a bit divergent at the time, and I was asking the strong question. So it's not really a surprise that years and years later, I become a CPA doing auditing and risk management and asking the hard question and things like that. So I end up without knowing it, I end up like routing my career in that direction. But that was not even the plan. I was supposed to be like a professional football player. I, I, I
Wow.
I got a terrible accident. My leg was broken at 4 places, and then after that, I reroute my life into like finance and accounting, and then end up being specialized. And now, through that work and that career, then I learned the leadership, develop leadership, and now I'm teaching people to avoid people becoming bad leader, or for people to just become like awesome leader. But
I can see
early on,
that working as towards the being a professional football player. I can tell that that comes with striving for success. There's a passion behind it, with consistency of effort. So
I,
unless and until,
I still
there
have
you
my old
go.
football, my old
Oh
like Canadian
wow.
football league football.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That's, well, you know what? I was gonna say I didn't know about your injury. Otherwise, I was gonna say it's never too late. We can always try and enter. It's a different world now. But oh, that's amazing. That's wonderful. Give me one life-changing, impactful incidents of your life that has changed your thinking the way it is.
And that's funny because that's linked to that accident. So after that accident, I took a 2 year sabbatical. I
Uh-huh.
did not study, I did not work, I did not even date women. Like for 2 years, nothing
Wow.
happened from that end. But during that 2 years, I probably read about, I don't know, like 1,000 books. I read 1,000 books, and I start liking learning and stuff like that. Remember, I was bad at school, then I become
Hmm.
quite good at school.
Hmm.
But during that 2 years, I did a deep introspection to know myself better at the very, very, very core and roots. Then
Hmm.
through some various technique, well, I will not go in detail today, but so various techniques, one including like some Japanese Zen Kwan, so some deep, complex, and solvable question
Hmm.
that I found the answer. I discover like self-love.
Hmm.
And that was the most important day of my life where I discovered that I love myself. Not that I hated myself before, but I
Hmm.
become conscious that I love myself and why and all of that. And then since that day, after that, like doing that and self-development since that
Hmm.
day, uh, it's amazing. That
Self-awareness. Self-awareness is an amazing thing. And that actually is really right up your alley, because unless we're aware of our leadership style also, there's no self-awareness. As you said, most out of the numbers that you gave, 40% of them or maybe more were kind of just nurturing or passive.
yeah,
And that's exactly because they don't have any self-awareness. So I'm so glad that you brought us to that point. Again, I truly appreciate. 30 minutes have gone by so fast, Michel.
yeah.
I'm so grateful for your insight and your discussion on the topic of leadership. We can always go on. I would love to get you back again at another time. I'm sure our audience would love to hear more from you on this topic. We'll be posting every link that Michel has for his business, for his leadership Udemy courses down below our YouTube channel. Please go and check that out. He is so graciously given us, for our members, for Accelerate Global members only, access to his one program that is on Udemy, that is for 10 modules about meta programming to influence other people, how to influence other people. And I can't wait to see that program also, Michel. And please find that code in our Facebook group. Go find that link of that Facebook group in our YouTube channel as well. Um, Click on it, go attend it. Michel has got an amazing inventory of programs and a new program coming up soon. So we'll provide that link also as and when it does. Thank you again, Michel. I truly appreciate your
Thank you
time.
very much, Asma, for having me. It was a pleasure discussing with you and sharing the little that I know with all of you.
You know a lot. I'm sure we have learned a lot and we can do some more. So we'll be bringing another distinguished speaker come next week, Tuesday, same time, same place, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please go check out accelerateglobal.com. And if you're in for a startup, you're looking to start a new business, that's a great place to start with. Let's have a discussion. We'll be happy to talk to you in regards to that. So thank you again. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you, Michel.